I'm so excited because today on the show I have a guy named Joe Denner. Just a couple quick bullet points about Joe. He is now serving as an executive coach and a business consultant. He likes to help people work toward their life purpose. Joe, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, Billy, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, you and I have known each other for a while. Joe is a friend of mine, a good friend. He's been a mentor and coach. He's really supported Melissa and I and our family and our marriage. One of the things I will note is obviously not a contest, but Joe wins the award. He actually gets second place. Way back in the day when I started the show, I had this couple on and they had like 13 kids or something like that.
Oh,
But other
wow.
than that, yeah, that was a great episode if you want to check that out. But
Sure.
Joe has and his wife, they have 9 children. So anytime a guy has 9 children and he's just able to do anything else, I'm always intrigued. So that was just an interesting point about Joe. So yeah, Joe, thanks again for coming on. I'm excited to
Yeah.
have a great conversation.
Yeah, glad to be here. I'm looking forward to it. And yes, I've enjoyed our friendship a lot over the years. It's been fun.
Awesome, man. I know that you have an interesting background. I pretty much know it for the most part, but maybe not even as much as I think. So I'd love to start with you just sharing a little bit. I know that you've served as a CFO and a
Mhm.
COO, and now doing leadership coaching. Just tell us a little bit about your story and sort
Sure.
of how that happened.
Yeah, I started my career in accounting and finance. I actually worked at one of the big six public accounting firms, at least when it was the big six many years ago. Got out of that fairly quickly, got my CPA and began in the accounting and finance world and really grew my skills in that arena. And ultimately, as you mentioned, became the first controller for a small brand new business that was just kind of a startup. And we grew that business from about a half a million in sales to over 20 million in less than 5 years. And through that process, I grew with the company. As the company grew, I became the VP of finance, then the CFO, and then ultimately I made the audacious statement to my boss that I wanted his job because actually I knew he was going to get bored sooner or later. So I figured I might as well ask now. And that's when I got to step into the COO role. And that's where I fell in love with people development, leadership development, and that really began my journey to not only working with people and leading leaders, but then ultimately started my own business. My wife and I were home educating our kids and just really felt like it'd be awesome if I was able to be more involved in that. And my career was very time consuming. And so we felt that maybe doing our own thing would give us the opportunity, a little more flexibility, a little more freedom. And funny enough, when I started the business, a lot of people told me, well, say goodbye to your family for the next 18 months. And we just made a decision. We're not doing that. We're not going to go the conventional route. And we made time for family. We did things the way we felt like we needed to do them to preserve the family and preserve the vision of why we started this whole thing in the first place. And so I enjoyed all those years in accounting and finance and operations. And quite candidly, it perfectly prepared me for this new career that I launched into as an executive coach and business consultant and leadership trainer. And it's been a fantastic ride over the last 18 plus years. Learned a ton. My business has grown substantially, but I've worked with all different kinds of leaders and all different kinds of industries, and it's been loads of fun.
That's awesome. I'm definitely a believer in like those experiences that we have, those whether they're other careers or other positions, and we don't always know it at the time. I know you and I both share the same faith, and we know there's more at stake that we don't see. But
Right.
I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit because you mentioned that they set you up perfectly. How so? How did those
Yeah.
those
No, that's a good question because I remember being a little bit antsy as I started this new career. You know, I'm thinking all the people that know me in this old role. And I was a little nervous about stepping into this brand new thing. And my wife just said, hey, step back and let's just look back over the last 20 years and all of the different experiences you've had. as a pastor, as a controller, as a VP of finance, as a CFO, as a COO, and the different companies that I worked for and some of the different projects I got an opportunity to work on, some of the different conferences I'd had an opportunity to attend, all the books that I had consumed over those years. There was just all these pieces. And not only that, but it was maybe more importantly, the network of people that God had connected me with over those years. So it was experiences, it was learnings, it was books, but a lot of it became all of a sudden this network. And that has proven itself out, Billy, because really in the first 18 years of my business, I spent $100 on advertising. And so all of my business came from word of mouth. And that all came from building this network of people that knew and trusted me. Even though I was in this brand new thing, they were willing to take some risks and invite me in and see what I could do in this whole new realm of things. So I would say that really was what happened, is that 20 years of work experience and 20 years of building relationships and getting to know people and building relationships of trust and integrity really, really, really paid off as I began my business. And I think allowed me to get the business off the ground much sooner than I would have if I didn't really have a network to begin with.
I could relate a lot to that. And I wasn't planning on asking this, but since you mentioned it, I just want to encourage anybody listening that you just never know, like that next relationship. You don't do it to get something, but you just never know. And we all have so many examples of, I was thinking this morning, actually, just reflecting on a decision. I was going to, I actually literally joined a group for coaching. I signed the contract, and I just felt within me that it wasn't the right group. And I was honest with the guy. I said, hey, I know I signed, and I actually gave a deposit. I said, I'll uphold whatever I need to. I said, but I'm realizing this isn't the group for me. And he was as nice as could be. He's like, I get it. It's not every group is for everybody. And I just was thinking this morning, like that decision, that I went a different path, and that led to so many things that I had no idea at the time. But if I had gone the other, who knows? Maybe it would have been better, right? But probably not. These decisions, the people that we get involved with, we just never know where they're going to lead. I would have never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now, living where I'm living, connected to the people. So with that said, you use some words there like trust and integrity, and those are really great words, but what is it? What do they mean? How do I develop relationships of trust and integrity? What if I want to start building my network or just get better relationships? Like, how do you approach those types of relationships?
Yeah, those are obviously common words that we throw around pretty easily. But I think the bottom line for me is being a person of his or her word, doing what you say you're going to do. And that's been really a hallmark of my career. It's really a part of who I am as a person, being dependable, being reliable, making commitments that I can keep is really, really huge. But I think you mentioned something just a minute ago that I think feeds right into this, and that is that I'm not always looking for something for myself. I'm here to serve. I'm here to give. And I remember when I started my coaching career, I was on a big conference call. This was before Zoom and all this stuff. This was many years ago with all the gray hair I've got. So, and the guy who was leading the call, he basically said, give as much away as you possibly can.
Nice.
He said, he was a Christian, so he was a man of faith. And he said, you cannot outgive God. And Billy, I have given thousands of hours of my time away as a coach and in other capacities as well. But even within my business, I've given a lot away. And it's because my bottom line cares. I want to take care of people. I want to care for people. I want to nurture people. I want to help people grow and become everything that they were created to be. And I think that when people know that you are not just there to get something, but you are there, whether it's for a win-win or just to give, people pick up on that. And when you live that out over a period of time with people consistently, I think that's huge, because consistency is another word that I would add in terms of integrity and trust. consistency is a huge key, because you can be reliable here and there and not reliable here and there, and people don't know what they're getting.
Yeah.
But when you are consistently someone people can count on and know that, hey, you've got their back and you are here for them, I think it makes all the difference.
That's so good. I probably should move on, but I have to just kind of dig in a little bit. It's interesting because that's I guess at the heart of it, it's a character thing. Like, you have the character that does what you're going to say, that truly loves people, truly has their best interest. With that said, I'm just thinking of the person listening. It's like, yeah, that all sounds good, but I got to make my rent. I got to make my payroll. I got to get some sales. And on one hand, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, right? On one hand, I have to get above the circumstances that are happening. Like, yes, all those things are true, but I have to be above that so that I can have the awareness even to approach things that way. And there's some truth to the practical side of, if I'm not so overpressed and no margin, and I don't really have the bandwidth to look out for people and do things. I think there's an interesting balance there, because I think there is some truth to that. I noticed in my life,
Sure.
yeah, when there's more margin, I could give more and I could think that way, right? But when things are scrambling and we just had a baby, and it's like, it's harder to kind of get in that mindset. And it's like who you are. Like, it shouldn't be based on those circumstances. Like, what kind of encouragement would you give somebody who's like, I want to be that way, but if I'm honest, I do tend to think, what can I get, because I need to get some things out of it.
I think the getting mentality is a short-term mentality. It's very, very short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've got to be willing to play the long game.
Amen.
And the long game goes beyond today and tomorrow. And again, listen, I've got 9 kids. When I started my business, I had 8 kids. Mm-hmm. I had a very large mortgage, and I had pretty much no savings in the bank. So I understood the pressure of what it meant to have to sell something and have to do things. And I just decided that it's more important that I am the man that I want to be, and I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day and be okay with that. And ultimately it is. I'm making an investment in the long haul. And so I think if you keep that perspective, it changes everything, because short-term results will only get you so far. It's the long-term results that we're looking for, and those are the lasting things.
And it's true with everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Without question.
And I know there's somebody listening that's struggling with that. So I just encourage you to really reflect on that, because it's just to be a little bit of a tough coach. It's an easy excuse to say that I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have time to do that. I just got to get another client.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
there was a saying years ago, and then we can move on if you want. But I heard this saying years ago: you can either have what you want, or you can have all the reason, excuses, and blame for why you don't. Yep. And I think that what you are referring to there just now, Billy, is really important. Let's not give in to excuse making. Let's not give in to blaming other people. Let's take ownership of our future, and let's take ownership of our character, and let's lean into that and be the person that we want to be and that we know other people need us to be.
I love that. And like I said, it's just in every area. We're going to move on slightly, but not a ton. Still talking about leadership. I believe I saw either a blog post or another podcast you did where you talked about some of the essential skills of a great leader. I believe there were 5. We don't necessarily have to get into all 5. But yeah, I'm listening. A lot of, I would assume, I should probably know the audience better, but I would assume there are some solopreneurs, but there are also people with small teams. I don't think there's many people listening with hundreds of team members or anything like that. But there's plenty of gym owners and other entrepreneurs listening, and they have 5, 10 team members, and they're trying to be a good leader. What are some things that we can look at, even from a practical standpoint? It's like, these are some qualities I need to develop, and here's how I am now in those areas, so that we can take something out of this and say, if I can grow in this area, I'll be able to make an even greater impact.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be super practical right here at the beginning, and that is that I believe, and I've grown in my belief, that one of the most essential skills for a leader today is the ability to be an effective listener. And that may sound very, counterintuitive. Like leadership is all about being out there and casting vision and all this out there stuff. And my point is this: leadership is ultimately all about influence. It is not about telling people what to do. It is not about making people do stuff. True leadership, as it's defined in almost every dictionary I can find, is all about getting people to want to do something. Leading me going somewhere and having the kind of character and the kind of skills that have other people want to follow me and go where I'm going. And I think more now than ever, people want to be heard. People want to be listened to. They want to be understood. And so I think the ability to be an effective listener is absolutely paramount. And it's something I teach all the time. I was just actually working with a client yesterday on becoming a more effective listener. And so that's a very, very practical skill. I mean, we could spend a whole podcast just on listening,
Absolutely.
trust me. Because anyway, that's the place to start, because people want to follow those who know how to follow. People want to follow and listen to those who know how to listen. And so we need to model what we want our followers to be, and they will be much more likely to get on board. And obviously vision casting is a very practical, easy one. We've got to be able to cast some kind of a vision for where are we going? Like, where is this organization going? What are we trying to accomplish together? And doing that in a way that elicits a buy-in and a sense of a shared vision of, this is not Joe's thing, this is our thing. And I think that's really, really critical. Is so it's not just vision casting, but it's the ability to cast a vision that I can bring others on board with and get collaborative with about, and create something that we are all in this together and it's ours, not mine. I think the ability to delegate is one that I would just say maybe 20 years ago I probably wouldn't have even had on my list. But I do think it's in the podcast that you're talking about, or the blog post you're referring to, because I learned fairly early on in this coaching and consulting gig, working with CEOs, is those who didn't know how to delegate, those who didn't know how to give away what ought to be given away. And that I really think is the key. It's not just the ability to give something away, but what am I giving away? I'm giving away the things that enable me to bring to the organization what the organization needs from me. Because it's really easy sometimes to do what we like to do or what's easy to do. And as the leader, I need to do what the organization needs from me. Now, that sometimes that's going to include things that I want to do and things that I'm passionate about and gifted in doing. But many times I hold on to things that I could give to others and I could entrust into others' hands. And I also need to do that well. You have to know how to delegate well. You can't just throw something in somebody's lap and expect that they're going to be able to get it done. You have to give clear expectations. You may need to give training. You may need to give encouragement. You need to communicate clearly what you're looking for and what you want. But I would say listening, creating a shared vision, and effective delegation would be 3 at the top of my list.
Speaking of delegation, I think it's a great point. I think there is sometimes the opposite problem. I've had people, and I'd be curious of your take on this from with your background. But I've had people where they have this like overinflated payroll, for example, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" At some point, we have to, I guess, develop the art of knowing, like you're saying, what to delegate based on whether that's like the lower leverage tasks and or where your skills are, where you're uniquely serving the business, but then also living in reality. And unless you're okay with not having the healthiest numbers for a short period of time because you know what it's doing in the long run. I mean, kind of like a common sense answer, but I don't know if you have any other thoughts on, when, what do I look at to say, okay, this is a good time? Because I think you could wait too long. You could also delegate too soon.
And I think, I'll be very honest, in my 20 years, and I've worked with hundreds of senior leaders and business owners, I rarely see someone who gives stuff away too quick. I'm not saying they're not out there. I one or two pop into my mind as you even say that, but they're the rarity. They're the anomaly, in all of this. Most of us are holding on. And I'm going to tell you right now, the number one reason is because we don't think people can do it as well as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We don't trust other people to do it as well as we can do it. And you have to develop the ability. And the E-Myth by Michael Gerber is a great book that really preaches this idea of you think you're the only one who can do this and you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There really are. And not only can people do it as well as you can, there are probably a number of people out there that can do it better than you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to believe that. You have to be humble enough to believe that other people can do the job as well as you can. And so I think, you brought up finances, and I think those are important considerations.
Mm-hmm.
But really the idea is to give things away, to free my time up to do the things that matter the most, mm-hmm. and that are going to give me the ability to grow the business and expand the business in a way that's going to allow me to bring others on board and grow the pie, if you will, not get a bigger slice of the pie, but how do I grow the pie so that not only my company is benefiting, but my customers are benefiting, and even my vendors and suppliers are benefiting. I'm growing the supply chain, and that's the beauty of a non-scarcity mindset in business. So don't know if I answered your question, but that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Speaking of delegation and time management, how does this stuff translate to the family? What do you know about, you talked about you had a vision with your wife and you wanted to protect your family time, just raising 9 children, running a business, but even just coaching other people. What comes to mind when it comes to time management is not the best word. We want to call it energy management or just balance in life. What kind of,
I would say there's one key thing that comes to mind immediately that my wife and I have been engaged in for probably 15 years now. And that is that every 90 days, my wife and I take 2 days and 1 night and we go away. And that's looked differently over the years based on the ages of the kids and the demands in life. But I think in 15 years, I think we've missed doing it 2 or 3 times. And we go away and we take time to look back over the last 90 days, what went well, what didn't go well, in 8 different categories of our life that we've come up with. And then we look forward and we say, okay, over the next 90 days, in those same 8 categories, what's important? And we go through all 8 categories, what's most important in all 8 of those categories. And then we boil it down and say, okay, we can't do the 20 things we just decided were important over the next 3 months. What are the 3 most important things that we're going to get done? And just so you know, as an entrepreneur and as a family man, one of the 8 categories is our business. And so we talk about our family, our marriage, we talk about our business, we talk about a number of things, our health, our finances. And in those top 3 priorities, sometimes the business is leading the way. And other times the business is a little bit into the background because it's running, it's doing well. And we've got to really focus on either some family things or some health things or some finance things. And so I would say, I don't like the word work-life balance because I don't think it exists. To me, what it comes down to is how do we identify what's important to us, and how do we choose our priorities, and then how do we live and allow our priorities to trickle down and to impact the way we plan our week and our day. So every Sunday, typically, my wife and I will get together and we look at the week ahead. And we look at our 3 priorities and we say, where is that showing up on our calendar? How is that making its way into real life? Because either it is a priority or it isn't. And so I think from a time management standpoint, it's quarterly, we decide what are our big rocks. And then we allow that to flow down into our weekly planning. And then then each of us in our daily planning try to make sure those things fit their way into the way we plan our life together. And I think my wife and I communicate a ton. We are communicating every day. And I would say that weekly time and that quarterly time are the bedrock of how we do this thing together and stay sane.
That's awesome. So you're treating at some level, you're treating your family like a business. A lot of businesses will follow EOS and they'll do their meetings and their rocks.
That's exactly where it came from.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they don't do any of it at home. And so we do a lot of similar things. And I yeah, I just really encourage anybody to, if that sounds overwhelming, just start the first conversation, do the first meeting, and
Yeah.
you go from there. But I love
Yeah,
that.
and obviously seasons of life are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got three little kiddos, and like, how are we going to get away?
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten really creative over the years, so I just encourage you. See, every season is going to be different. Don't
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in some kind of box and think that this is the only way to do it. No, no. Start small, take a step, and I love how you put that. Just grow into it and see where it goes.
That's awesome. I know you talked about vision casting, and we talk about leadership. I know one of your callings is to help people discover their purpose and their God-giving calling.
Yeah.
Super broad, but if you could just speak a little bit about that in terms of, maybe I'm listening and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this business, I'm kind of in the weeds. How can I think more about, my purpose? What are
Yeah.
some ways to
Well,
reflect on
Stephen
it?
Covey, talks about this idea of starting with the end in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really what this is about. It's also about an analogy I heard many, many, many years ago, is you don't want to put your ladder up against the wall, climb up and get to the top, and realize you put your ladder up against the wrong wall. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a lot of people that are climbing a ladder and they don't even know what wall their ladder's up against.
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal is to help people take a step back and really realize, is what I'm doing serving a greater purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm doing really serving the greater purpose for which I was put here on the earth?
Mm-hmm.
And so my passion is really helping people take that step back, take a season of time and really work through a process of figuring out, what was I made to do? Why am I here? What's life all about? And how am I leaving an imprint? How am I building a legacy? And by the way, when I say that, I don't mean that everybody's going to remember who Joe Denner is. That's not what I'm
Mm-hmm.
ultimately concerned about, but I'm ultimately concerned about building something that's going to last and that I can pass on to the next generations, whether that's my own children or whether that's somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like I meet a lot of business owners that have gotten to the place where they have become a slave to their business.
Yes.
And my passion is to help entrepreneurs and business leaders and business owners get to the point where their career and or their business are serving their purpose, and they're not just all of a sudden become a slave to this beast that is sucking the life and energy out of them. And it's really easy to get there if you don't know why you're doing it. And if you don't, Simon Sinek wrote a great book called Start With Why. I love that book. And I think it feeds right into what I'm trying to do with my life, is to help leaders understand, what is my why? Like, why am I here? What's my life all about? And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And that's what really gets the juices flowing for me, is helping men and women really identify what that is, and then allowing that to bring shape to and become the filter through which everything else goes, and what belongs in my life and what doesn't belong in my life. And so that's really a big passion of mine.
Yeah, I'll just speak on that a little bit. That Simon Sinek book, I agree, great book. He talks a lot about, which a lot of people who are teaching about, whether it's called story or your why, he talks about, there's exercise. He has a workbook for that as well,
Yeah.
for anybody
Yeah.
listening. And there's all these different prompts. And I actually went through it with a buddy of mine, and he has you do all these cool things where you like chart out your life and you look for different clues. Like, all of your experiences happened for a reason, and
Yes.
it's good to reflect on those. I know for me, like, prime example, like, I had my car repossessed in 2010, and here I am helping people with their money at that time. Never would have thought that. But how much does that come up for you in helping people with this kind of stuff, where they look back at the experiences they've had, their own
Yeah.
story, even sometimes going back to childhood, I really enjoyed putting things together or whatever it was, and now that becomes part of their ultimate purpose.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack there, but in the process that I take people through with building what I call a life map, there is a lot of discovery work that we do. There's a lot of looking back, and one of the things we do is a thing I call the achievement exercise, and that exercise asks people to just, hey, go back over your life as far back as you possibly can, and I want you to think of the 10 to 15 accomplishments from your life for which you are the most proud, the things that are most meaningful and significant to you. Because oftentimes what I find is there's a common thread
Yeah.
as we look back and see, whoa. And that's really, I went through that process myself in creating my business and creating what I was going to do with my new business. And I realized I love helping people grow. And so that's what got me into coaching was I want to help people grow. I want to help people become all of who God made them to be. And so this idea of discovery and looking back and looking for clues, what are the natural gifts and talents that I have in my life? In other words, nobody had to teach me how to do this. I've just been good at this my whole life. Then there's this other set of things. What have I learned? What have I become really highly competent at? Like fixing cars or writing programs or writing stories or fixing plumbing, whatever. Like, what are the skills, the competencies, the abilities that I've learned and grown and honed over the years? And you take these two things and now we lop on this idea of what am I passionate about, right? So I've got my innate skills, my learned skills, and my passions, and we start looking for that kind of Venn diagram of where's the center point at which those things overlap. And so there's this discovery work, and you use the word clues. I use that word all the time. What are the clues? What are the breadcrumbs as I look back over my life that clearly lead me to this place that says, this is what I was made to do, and this is now how I can live my life purposefully and meaningfully and get to the end of my days and realize I came to the top of the wall and I put my ladder up against the right wall.
That's awesome. I love the idea of the diagram, and you're looking at those three different pieces because, you can easily, I'm thinking about myself now, but you can easily have the passion, but you're missing one of the other pieces. Maybe you really enjoy doing something, but you're not that good at it, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
It forces you to look at that. Quick example from my life. It's interesting. The other day, and I don't want to make this about me, but I will. No, just kidding. I got asked to present at a really cool thing, and I just got so excited, beyond excited, in a weird way, kind of freaked me out. Like, I am so excited. And the truth is, from a pure financial standpoint, it's great. But I went home and told my wife, and I was jumping with joy like a little kid. And I said, "You're not going to believe." And she was all excited, and the kids were all excited. And I said to her, I said, if you said to me, "I'm going to give you, let's say 10 new clients," which would be amazing. And I don't want to downplay that. It would be life-changing, game-changing, get to change their life, help them change their life. Or this other thing that involves the presenting. I said, I would choose this. And it's it was just a clue.
Absolutely.
To one of those pieces that you're talking about. So I love that idea, man. So much value packed in here. Everything from, I love all of it, but I really love the idea of getting on the same page with your spouse and setting up those meetings and the goals and just taking that step, the idea of listening. It is so undervalued, and if you want to win in business and life, do these things that seem like they're not that big of a deal, because they are everything. Most people do not feel listened to. They don't feel valued, and if you can do that for people, then they'll be throwing their money at you, but it's not about that.
Well, and here's the key thing. John Maxwell said something years ago that really struck me. He said, the old adage is that experience is the best teacher. He said it's not true. He said evaluated experience is the best teacher. And so this idea of building a life map, this idea of building a family vision, this idea of doing all of this is building something that is leading us forward. And then it is absolutely critical that we take the time. And that's the biggest problem in the US and in the Western world, is we do not take the time to reflect. We do not take the time to look back and learn from where we've been so that we can apply that evaluated experience going forward. And it's interesting because I heard this stat years ago. If you think about the space shuttle, and I was asked the question years ago in a class, how much of the time is the space shuttle on course? And it's only 2% of the time.
Wow.
NASA spends 98% of the time that the shuttle is on its way to the space station making course corrections. And the only way to make course corrections effectively is to look back and see where I've been
Wow.
and to see the trail that I've left behind. But if I also then don't have a purpose that I'm aiming towards, I don't know if I'm on track or whether I'm off track. And so the idea is to do both things. Take the time to identify purpose and meaning and destination. And then along the way, take time regularly and consistently to evaluate, am I on track? What can I learn from where I've been? And how do I use that going forward to make the journey more successful and more fruitful, both financially, experientially, spiritually, joyfully, whatever it might be, for me and for my family and for the others around me, because it's not all about me. You said that earlier. It's not about me. My life is not about me. It's about what I can do to bring joy and meaning and value and purpose to the others around me. And if you live that way, I can almost guarantee you it's going to be a fruitful life.
I love it. Can't think of a better way to end. We are going to just do these rapid questions I like to ask people.
Sure.
As we finish up here. And before we do that, where's the best place to go? I know you have a resource for people. We'll also put that in the show notes. So whatever you want to share about that would be great.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to do whatever Joe says. Follow what he says, because you'll be in good hands.
Yeah. So if you go to joedenner.com and click on the get started button, it's going to take you to a page that's going to help you. Also, in the show notes, we're going to drop a link that's going to take you right to the place you want to be to grab my resource on how to move from success to significance, how to create a life of meaning and purpose and value. Grab that resource, and I would love to have a conversation with you about that. So that's the best place to find me, joedenner.com, or grab the link in the show notes and sign up for a call with me.
Awesome. And this was just 35 minutes of gold. I mean, there's so much more we could have gone into, but let's do these last questions here. The first one is, I like to give people like one or two options. What's a mistake that you've made that we could all learn from? You talk about reflecting. I'm sure you've reflected on some mistakes you've made. What's one that jumps out to you, whether that's in leadership, in business, or really anything?
Yeah, I think one mistake I've made is being too rigid and saying, no, I've got a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan. And what I've learned is I have a destination. I have something I'm aiming at. The road I'm traveling, I need to be very flexible. I need to be open to learning. I need to be open to input from my wife. I need to be open to input from my kids. I need to be open to input from my clients. And I think there have been times when I've been too rigid and I haven't listened. And that's been a big mistake.
Awesome. Next question is about books. I know Joe is a leader. Him and I have talked quite a bit about different books. He's recommended books. I've recommended books to him, I think. But a couple that we referenced already were The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Great book on creating systems, growing your business like a franchise, and getting out of your own way of being a technician. The second one that we mentioned, you mentioned...
Start with Why.
Yeah, Simon Sinek, Start with Why. Also, those are really two top books. One book that I'll just kind of throw in there is... Pat Lencioni has a book about what Joe was talking about with like your family and creating like objectives for the family. So that's a good one too. It's called like the 3 Questions for a Chaotic Family or something like that. And
it's a great book.
Yeah. So with that said, is there any others you want to throw on this list here that you could recommend? Maybe it's the book that you didn't mention because we just didn't really talk about that thing.
I'm going to give you 2. I'm going to give you 2 real quick. The first one is one of my favorites of all time, and it's the book, and it's called Integrity by Henry Cloud.
Nice.
One of the best books I've ever read about becoming a man or woman of character. And that's a lot of what we talked about early on in our conversation. The second one is a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. Leadership and Self-Deception. It comes from the Arbinger Institute. The Arbinger Institute. It's a great, if you like allegories like Pat Lencioni writes, it's another allegory, fable type of a book. Teaches a great lesson on what it means to be a great leader.
I've read Integrity about 3 times. Really, really good book. I have not read the other one, but I just saw it today. A buddy of mine released a list of his favorite books, and that was on there, and I noted that. So I'm definitely going to add that to my list. I agree 100% with all of that. Last question is, what's something that Joe Denner wants to do in the future? Like what's, so you call it a bucket list thing, something you want to experience, something you want to make an impact with,
Yeah.
buy, whatever it is.
Nope. That's an easy one. I just came back from 3 weeks in Southern Africa. We were in South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. And I would say a big bucket list item for me would be to help pastors and to help impoverished people in Zimbabwe and Mozambique and South Africa start businesses that are sustainable. That's a huge topic,
Yeah.
but it is a huge thing that God has put on my heart to do. My wife and I are very passionate about this, and we are making connections and making plans for the future. But I would love to help people start micro businesses that can grow into something sustainable to help them feed their families, so that they are net givers rather than net takers. And I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. We're going to end with something that is a little, maybe a little weird, but when I first met Joe, it was a long time ago. Was it maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah,
Something like
probably.
that. And just to speak to Joe's character, so we met and we connected. It was nothing crazy. We met for a little 30-minute talk and, saw each other around the area where we were. And some time went by. I reached out to Joe. If you guys are watching the video on YouTube, which we just started doing, you'll see little tears coming up here. But I reached out to Joe to connect, and he responded. And I said, I don't know if you remember me, but we met and blah blah blah. And he said, yeah, absolutely, I remembered you. I've been praying about you and your family. And man, I don't think I've ever teared up on the show, but after 300 episodes or so, here we are. And that was just a testament to Joe's character. Like, he really cared. He is who he says he is. So definitely encourage you to take all this to heart. We're all better for this. And I'm just really glad to get this out there, Joe. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity, Billy. It's an honor. I've enjoyed our friendship, and I really appreciate your affirming words. Thank you.